Have you ever felt like you just don't fit in? Like no matter how hard you try, you're always on the outside looking in? Maybe you've been called antisocial or weird just because you prefer to keep to yourself or avoid shallow conversations. It's a feeling that many of us have experienced at some point in our lives. But what if I told you that this feeling of not belonging might actually be a sign that you are smarter, more aware, and more in tune with the world around you than most people? In today's video, we're diving into the profound teachings of Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, who argued that being antisocial isn't a flaw, it's a path to self-awareness, creativity, and personal growth. Jung believed that in order to truly live a fulfilling life, we must separate ourselves from the noise of society and focus on discovering our true selves. This journey, known as individuation, isn't about conforming to societal expectations or following the crowd. It's about breaking free from the script that everyone else follows and learning to live according to your own authentic desires and values. So, if you've ever felt misunderstood, disconnected, or like you just don't quite fit in, then this video is for you. We'll explore the power of silence, observation, and solitude, and how these practices can lead you to greater self-awareness and fulfillment. You're not antisocial or broken, you're just more awake, more conscious, and more capable of seeing the world in ways that others can't. Before we dive into this fascinating exploration of self-awareness, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends. Your support helps me keep creating insightful and transformative content for all of you. Let's get started on this journey of self-discovery and awakening. In today's world, the term antisocial is often thrown around lightly to describe those who prefer solitude over social interaction. It's commonly used as a label to identify individuals who don't actively participate in group activities or social gatherings. However, what if this label is not as accurate as we think? What if people who are seen as antisocial aren't necessarily avoiding people or being difficult, but rather are simply more aware, more intelligent, and more thoughtful than those around them? Imagine for a moment you're at a social event. Everyone around you is engaging in lively conversation, perhaps even discussing trivial topics. You, however, are quietly observing the interactions, taking mental notes on how people react to certain stimuli, noticing the subtle shifts in body language, and thinking about the deeper meanings behind the words being exchanged. Some might look at you and wonder why you're not participating. Why are you so quiet, they might ask. Or, don't you want to join the fun? But what if the reason you're not engaging in these surface-level conversations is because you recognize their lack of substance? You're not avoiding people, you're just seeing things differently. The concept of being antisocial is largely rooted in societal expectations. The world often views socializing as a requirement for mental well-being, suggesting that to fit in, one must constantly engage, interact, and blend into the crowd. But what if this societal expectation is flawed? What if those who choose to step back and quietly observe are the ones with a deeper understanding of the world? What if their so-called antisocial behavior is actually a reflection of a higher level of awareness? To be more specific, being antisocial in this context doesn't mean being hostile or unfriendly. It doesn't mean rejecting all human interaction. Rather, it's about choosing not to waste time on trivial, meaningless conversations or social activities that don't align with your values or interests. It's about prioritizing genuine connections over small talk. When we label someone as antisocial, we often overlook the possibility that they may simply be people who have learned to tune out the noise of society and focus inward. Carl Jung, one of the most influential psychologists of all time, offers valuable insight into this concept. Jung proposed the idea of individuation, the process of becoming one's true self by separating from the collective noise of society. According to Jung, most people go through life following societal norms, rarely questioning their environment or the way they've been conditioned to think and behave. People are often too busy conforming to the expectations placed upon them by family, friends, or social media, to reflect on their true selves. This is where solitude becomes crucial. Jung argued that to truly meet oneself, a person must often break away from the crowd, embracing periods of solitude to discover their authentic self. This process is not easy and requires courage, as the individual might be misunderstood or even criticized for choosing solitude over social interaction. But this solitude, as Jung pointed out, is where real self-discovery takes place. It's in the silence that we are able to tune into our own thoughts and feelings, free from external distractions. It's through silence that we become aware of who we truly are, rather than who society wants us to be. Now, let's think about how this applies in everyday life. Have you ever felt out of place in a social setting? Maybe you were at a party or a work event, and while everyone around you seemed to be enjoying themselves, you found yourself sitting quietly, observing the crowd. Perhaps you didn't join in on the small talk or the gossip, not because you weren't interested in connecting, but because you found the conversation shallow or meaningless. It's possible that others might have looked at you and thought you were standoffish or uninterested, but in reality, you were simply prioritizing depth over superficial interaction. You were more aware of the lack of substance in the conversation and chose to remain silent, which is not a flaw, it's a sign of intelligence. We live in a world where there is an overwhelming pressure to conform and fit in. From the pressure to participate in group activities to the expectation of socializing with friends. There's an unspoken rule that those who don't engage in these behaviors are somehow less than those who do. This pressure often leads people to question themselves, wondering if there's something wrong with them for preferring solitude. But the truth is, the people who embrace solitude are often the ones who can see things more clearly, who notice the subtle details that others miss, and who are more attuned to their own emotions and thoughts. For example, consider a person who chooses to spend their evening reading a book or reflecting on their day, rather than attending a party or engaging in mindless chatter. At first glance, it becomes clear that this person is not avoiding human interaction, they're simply investing in their own intellectual and emotional growth. They're choosing to nourish their mind and soul, rather than wasting time on activities that offer little value. This brings us back to the original premise. What if being antisocial isn't a bad thing? What if it's a sign of greater intelligence? We live in a world that prioritizes outward appearances and constant stimulation. Social media bombards us with the need for validation, the desire for likes, and the pressure to participate in every trend. But the individuals who resist this pressure and choose to observe rather than react are the ones who are most in tune with the world around them. They are more likely to be innovators, thinkers, and creators. They may not fit into the traditional mold of what society expects, but they are the ones who make the most profound contributions to the world. Take the example of famous thinkers and innovators throughout history. Many of them were considered anti-social in their time. People like Albert Einstein, Nikola Tesla, and Isaac Newton were often seen as reclusive, quiet, and eccentric. Yet, their contributions to science, technology, and philosophy have had a lasting impact on the world. They didn't conform to societal norms or engage in trivial conversations. Instead, they spent their time reflecting, questioning, and discovering truths that others were too busy to notice. They embraced solitude, and it was in this solitude that they were able to unlock their greatest potential. It's also worth noting that intelligence is not always about having the loudest voice in the room or constantly asserting oneself. Often, the smartest people are those who listen more than they speak. They observe, they reflect, and they take the time to understand the world around them. They don't rush to fill the silence with words, because they know that silence is a space for learning, for growth, and for deeper understanding. In many ways, being antisocial can be seen as a gift. It's the ability to disconnect from the noise of the world and to focus on what truly matters. It's about recognizing that not every conversation is worth having, not every gathering is worth attending, and not every opinion is worth considering. It's about learning to trust your own thoughts and instincts, rather than conforming to the opinions of others. The truth is, we all have moments when we feel disconnected from the world around us. We might feel like we don't belong, or that we're different from everyone else. But instead of viewing these moments as signs of inadequacy, we should embrace them as opportunities for self-reflection and growth. Embrace the silence, embrace the solitude, and trust that in these moments, you are not lost, you are simply discovering who you truly are. In conclusion, being antisocial is not a sign of weakness or a flaw. It's a reflection of deeper awareness and a higher level of intelligence. Those who prefer solitude, who take the time to observe and reflect, are often the ones who see the world more clearly. They are not avoiding social interaction, they are simply choosing to engage with the world in a more meaningful way. So the next time someone calls you antisocial, remember, you're not less than them, you're just smarter. And that is a strength, not a weakness. In a world that thrives on noise and constant communication, there's a quiet strength in silence and observation that is often underestimated. It's easy to assume that those who speak the most or engage the most in social interactions are the most powerful or intelligent. However, there's a deeper form of power in those who choose silence, who observe rather than react, and who take time to analyze before acting. Silence is not weakness. It's a deliberate, conscious choice that gives people the ability to see the world and others clearly. It's in these quiet moments that real insight can be found, and the most profound observations are made. Consider for a moment the difference between someone who always feels the need to fill the silence with words and someone who is comfortable with quiet. The person who speaks constantly may be seeking validation, trying to shape the conversation or control the environment. Their focus may be on impressing others or fitting in, often without considering the deeper aspects of what is being discussed. On the other hand, the person who sits back and observes, who listens more than they speak, is often processing more than anyone realizes. They aren't concerned with fitting in or performing for an audience. Instead, they are paying attention to the subtleties, the body language, the tone of voice, the pauses in conversation, and the dynamics between people. These quiet observers have the ability to detect things that others overlook and are often much more attuned to the truth of a situation than those around them. A good example of this can be found in the world of art and literature. Some of the greatest works of literature and art were created by individuals who spent a significant amount of time in solitude, quietly observing the world around them. Writers like Virginia Woolf, who often retreated into quiet spaces to observe life, could see the complexities of human emotions and relationships in ways others might miss. Her works, such as Mrs. Dalloway, are not just stories, they are deep reflections on the human psyche, offering readers insights into the nature of time, memory, and identity. Woolf didn't need to be constantly involved in conversations or interactions to understand people. Her power lay in her ability to listen deeply, observe carefully, and reflect on her own thoughts. This quality of deep observation is not limited to the arts. It is equally important in business, leadership, and daily life. Think about great leaders like Warren Buffett. Buffett is known for being a man of few words. He spent a significant amount of his day reading, analyzing, and observing. He doesn't jump to conclusions or engage in hasty decisions. Instead, he patiently takes in the information, observes market trends, and thinks deeply before acting. This careful observation and thoughtful analysis have allowed him to make some of the most successful investments in history. He doesn't rush to talk or act because he understands the power of silence. His success is rooted in the quiet strength of patience and deep observation. On a more personal level, consider how silence can be a tool for better relationships. In social interactions, many people focus on speaking their minds, telling their stories, and sharing their thoughts without much pause. While this can be engaging, it often leaves little room for truly understanding the other person. In contrast, someone who listens deeply and observes the other person's reactions can gain a much clearer understanding of their feelings, intentions, and needs. The person who remains silent, giving space for the other to speak, can often see past the words and into the emotions behind them. This creates stronger, more meaningful connections as people feel heard and understood. It's not always the loudest person in the room who makes the biggest impact. It's often the one who listens, who observes, and who responds thoughtfully. Psychologically, silence is a powerful tool for self-awareness. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by external stimuli, news, social media, advertisements, conversations, it is easy to lose touch with our inner thoughts and desires. Silence gives us the space to reconnect with ourselves, to process our emotions, and to gain clarity about our lives. It's in these quiet moments that we can ask ourselves the difficult questions and hear the answers that we might otherwise ignore. Whether through meditation, journaling, or simply sitting in silence, we allow ourselves the opportunity to reflect and discover insights that lead to personal growth. Silence also plays a crucial role in critical thinking. In our fast-paced world, there's often a pressure to have an immediate opinion or response to every situation. People are expected to react quickly, to give an answer or a solution right away. But those who understand the power of silence know that it is not always necessary to respond immediately. Sometimes the best course of action is to step back, observe, and think carefully before reacting. This ability to take a step back allows for deeper analysis and more thoughtful responses, which often leads to better outcomes. For example, in negotiations or conflict resolution, taking the time to listen, observe, and understand the other person's perspective can lead to more effective solutions than reacting impulsively. The idea that silence and observation are forms of strength is reinforced by psychological research. Studies have shown that people who are more introspective, who spend time reflecting and observing rather than constantly interacting, often have higher levels of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence involves the ability to understand and manage one's own emotions, as well as the ability to recognize and influence the emotions of others. People with high emotional intelligence are often more empathetic, better at navigating social situations, and more effective in their relationships. Silence and observation provide the space needed to develop this emotional intelligence, as they allow individuals to process their emotions and the emotions of others in a thoughtful way. In the workplace, leaders who take time to observe and reflect before making decisions are often more successful than those who act without consideration. A good leader understands that not every situation requires immediate action, and sometimes the best decisions come from careful thought and analysis. These leaders are able to assess the strengths and weaknesses of their team, understand the challenges they face, and find creative solutions that others might miss. They understand that silence isn't a sign of indecision, but rather a sign of strategic thinking. By observing the dynamics of the workplace, understanding the emotions of their team, and thinking deeply about the best course of action, these leaders are able to guide their teams to success. On a broader level, society could benefit from more silence and observation. We live in a world where information is constantly being processed, shared, and consumed. The rise of social media has made it easier than ever to voice our opinions and share our thoughts with a global audience. While this has led to greater connection and communication, it has also led to a lot of noise, people shouting over each other, making snap judgments, and reacting without fully understanding the situation. What is often missing in this noise is the depth that comes from silence and careful observation. If more people took the time to listen, to reflect, and to consider multiple perspectives before reacting, we might see less division and more meaningful dialogue in society. The power of silence and observation also has a profound impact on creativity. Many great inventors, artists, and thinkers throughout history have credited their moments of solitude and silence as the key to their creative breakthroughs. Albert Einstein, for example, was known to spend hours alone, thinking deeply about the nature of the universe. It was in these quiet moments that he developed some of his most revolutionary ideas, including the theory of relativity. Similarly, many artists, from painters to writers, find inspiration in moments of solitude, where they can reflect on their experiences and thoughts without distraction. Silence provides the mental space necessary for creativity to flow, allowing the mind to wander and make connections that might not be apparent in the midst of constant activity. Silence and observation are not just passive actions, they are active forms of engagement with the world around us. When we choose silence, we are making a conscious decision to engage in deeper thinking, to listen more intently, and to see things more clearly. These practices are not just about avoiding noise, but about choosing a different, more thoughtful way of interacting with the world. In doing so, we are able to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves, others, and the world around us, and to use that understanding to navigate life with greater wisdom and clarity. In conclusion, silence and observation are not just signs of introversion or disinterest, they're signs of strength, wisdom, and intelligence. Those who embrace silence have the ability to process information more deeply, to see patterns and connections that others miss, and to make more thoughtful, informed decisions. In a world that often values speed and constant activity, the quiet observer has a unique advantage. By taking the time to listen, reflect, and think before acting, we can develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world, leading to greater success, creativity, and fulfillment in all areas of life. In a society that often values extroversion, social interaction, and conformity, those who are labeled as antisocial often face misunderstanding. People who are quiet, introspective, or prefer solitude are sometimes deemed as strange, cold, or disconnected. However, what if these individuals aren't simply avoiding social contact or acting out of some flaw? What if they are, in fact, more attuned to the world around them and less willing to follow the prescribed paths that society sets for them? The term antisocial is often used to describe individuals who seem uninterested in socializing, preferring to keep to themselves. In many cases, these people avoid shallow conversations or refuse to engage in group activities that they perceive as unproductive or uninteresting. However, labeling someone as antisocial because they prefer solitude or don't conform to social expectations overlooks the deeper reasons behind their behavior. These individuals are often not rejecting society or human connection altogether. Rather, they're selectively choosing the types of interactions they engage in. Consider someone at a social event. For example, a party or a casual get-together. While most people are mingling, chatting, and laughing, there's someone quietly sitting in the corner, observing. This individual might not be participating in the group conversations, but they're paying close attention to the dynamics at play, the body language of others, the subtle exchanges between people, the way individuals behave in different settings. They may not seem social in the traditional sense, but their quiet observation allows them to gather information that others might miss. They aren't avoiding socializing out of disdain for others. Rather, they're choosing not to engage in superficial exchanges that don't hold any real meaning for them. At first glance, this might seem like anti-social behavior, but this type of individual is simply not conforming to the standard social script. They're not interested in following the herd or participating in conversations for the sake of fitting in. They are more focused on authenticity, depth, and meaningful engagement. While others might engage in small talk about the weather, the latest trends, or gossip, the person labeled as antisocial is thinking deeper, considering the implications of what's being said, and reflecting on their own thoughts and feelings. Their silence is not a reflection of indifference. It's a sign of their desire for more substantial, meaningful interactions. This difference is crucial because it highlights a key distinction between those who follow societal norms and those who choose to break free from them. Most people live their lives according to a set of societal expectations. These expectations are often established by family, culture, friends, and the media, creating a standard script that people follow without much thought. From a young age, individuals are taught to follow certain rules, whether it's about education, career paths, or relationships. This script, however, doesn't necessarily account for individual desires, interests, or passions. Instead, it often pushes people to conform to what is considered normal or acceptable within society. For instance, many people are expected to attend school, go to college, find a stable job, get married, and have children. These are the typical milestones of life that are celebrated and valued by society. Those who follow this script are seen as successful, responsible, and well-adjusted. But what about those who don't follow these conventions? Are they truly antisocial, or are they simply living according to their own script, one that doesn't necessarily align with society's expectations? The antisocial person may not conform to the conventional life trajectory. They may not feel the need to follow the societal script because it doesn't resonate with their true self. Instead of going along with what is expected, they may take time to explore their own interests, passions, and desires. This is often misunderstood as being detached or disinterested in society, when in fact, it is a form of self-exploration and a desire to live authentically. These individuals are not rejecting society, they are rejecting the imposed expectations that don't align with who they are. Think about someone who chooses to work for themselves, pursuing a creative career or an entrepreneurial venture rather than taking a traditional office job. This person might not socialize with colleagues in the same way that others do, and they may prefer to spend their evenings alone, reflecting on their work or engaging in hobbies that bring them joy. To outsiders, this might seem like isolation or disconnection, but in reality, this individual is living according to their own set of values, not the societal norms that dictate success. They are choosing a path of self-discovery, personal growth, and authenticity, rather than living in the shadow of what others expect from them. In many ways, this type of behavior is a form of rebellion not against people, but against the pressures to conform to an established societal norm. It's a rejection of living life on autopilot and an embrace of a more thoughtful, intentional approach to existence. The antisocial person, then, is often simply someone who has the courage to step away from the herd and live life on their own terms. They're not following the script that society provides because they believe that there is more to life than simply following a prescribed set of rules. Another critical aspect of this difference lies in how the antisocial individual views relationships. People who live by society's script are often motivated by external validation approval from others, social media likes, or the desire to fit in. They seek out connections based on external markers of success, such as shared interests, social status, or popularity. In contrast, someone who doesn't conform to these societal norms values authenticity over approval. They seek meaningful connections, not for the sake of status, but because they genuinely connect with the person. For them, the quality of a relationship matters far more than the quantity. They are not interested in superficial connections. They want real, deep interactions that foster growth and mutual understanding. This difference becomes especially clear in friendships and romantic relationships. The antisocial person is more likely to have a small circle of close, trusted friends, rather than a wide network of acquaintances. They may not attend every social gathering or party, and they may not engage in the same type of group activities that others enjoy. However, when they do connect with others, it is meaningful and genuine. They do not waste time on relationships that lack depth or authenticity. They value their time and energy, using it only for connections that truly nourish them. This focus on authenticity can also be seen in the workplace. While many people engage in office politics, participate in gossip, or follow the crowd in order to climb the corporate ladder, the antisocial individual often prefers to stay out of these dynamics. They may not be interested in fitting in with the group for the sake of career advancement, but instead, they focus on doing their work to the best of their ability. They are often more independent, relying on their own skills and judgment rather than seeking validation from colleagues. In many cases, this can make them more effective in their work, as they are not distracted by the superficialities of office culture. The antisocial individual's choice to live differently isn't necessarily a rejection of others, it's simply a rejection of a societal system that doesn't serve their true self. They're not trying to isolate themselves from the world, but are instead focused on living authentically. While many people may prioritize fitting in and following societal norms, the antisocial person chooses to carve out their own path, even if it means facing misunderstanding or criticism from others. In a broader sense, this distinction between the antisocial and the normal individual also highlights the difference between conformity and individuality. Conformity, as we know, is the act of aligning oneself with the expectations and behaviors of the majority. It's about blending in, following the rules, and avoiding deviation from what is considered normal. Individuality, on the other hand, is about embracing who you are, regardless of whether it fits into the societal mold. The antisocial person embodies this individuality, living in a way that feels true to themselves rather than following a script written by others. For many, this path is not an easy one. The pressure to conform is strong, and stepping outside of societal norms can be isolating. However, it's often the individuals who take this path, the ones who choose authenticity over fitting, and who go on to make the most significant impact in the world. These are the innovators, the thinkers, the creators, and the visionaries who change the course of history. They may not have followed the traditional script, but by embracing their individuality, they have shaped the world in ways that conformists could never imagine. In conclusion, the difference between the antisocial person and the normal individual is not as clear-cut as society often portrays it. Those who are labeled as antisocial may simply be individuals who choose to reject the societal script in favor of a more authentic, individualized path. They are not rejecting society. They are rejecting conformity. They are not avoiding social interaction. They're selectively engaging in meaningful connections. In a world that often values conformity, the antisocial person is the one who dares to be different, to live life on their own terms, and to seek truth and authenticity over societal approval. In this way, they become not just individuals, but pioneers who shape the future by living in a way that reflects their true selves. Silence is often seen as something uncomfortable, something to be avoided, particularly in a world that thrives on constant chatter, notifications, and interaction. However, Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, emphasized the tremendous power that silence holds. To Jung, silence wasn't an absence or emptiness. It was a space for deep reflection, creativity, and self-discovery. He argued that when individuals are not distracted by the noise of society, the constant hum of groupthink, or shallow conversations, they are free to explore their true selves. This is where silence becomes a tool, a powerful one, that can lead to profound personal development. In a society that often values extroversion, social interaction, and noise, silence is a precious commodity. It allows individuals the time and space to think deeply, reflect on their experiences, and connect with their inner selves. Jung believed that most people are too distracted by external stimuli to ever truly know themselves. They're so caught up in the expectations of society, their families, and their social circles that they never take the time to reflect on their thoughts, feelings, and desires. Silence provides an escape from these external distractions and gives individuals the space they need to listen to their own inner voice. Take, for example, a writer or an artist. In many cases, the best work is created in moments of solitude, when the noise of the world fades away and the artist is left alone with their thoughts. Great works of literature, music, and art are often born in quiet moments of reflection. Consider the works of Virginia Woolf, who spent significant time in solitude, exploring her inner world. Her reflections on the complexities of the human experience gave rise to some of the most profound literary works of the 20th century. Similarly, many artists, from painters to musicians, often find their greatest inspiration during moments of quiet reflection. This silence is not a void. It's the space where creative energy is born, where deep thoughts and original ideas can come into being. Jung believed that silence isn't just about being alone. It's about creating the space to think without external influence. In a world where distractions are constant, from social media to the endless barrage of notifications on our phones, finding time for solitude can be difficult. Yet, those who can carve out time for quiet reflection have a distinct advantage. They're able to hear their own thoughts, free from the noise and distractions that often drown out the voice of their true selves. Moreover, Jung argued that silence provides the clarity necessary for self-awareness. Without the constant influence of others' opinions, we are able to connect with our deepest thoughts and feelings. Silence offers a kind of mental and emotional detox, allowing us to step back and process our experiences in a way that leads to deeper self-understanding. This can be particularly important in times of stress, confusion, or uncertainty. When we take the time to sit in silence, we create the space necessary to process emotions, make sense of difficult situations, and find clarity in our decisions. One of the key aspects of silence, according to Jung, is that it enables the process of individuation, the journey towards becoming our true, authentic selves. Jung's concept of individuation is rooted in the idea that in order to grow psychologically and spiritually, we must separate ourselves from the external world and explore our inner world. This process requires solitude, introspection, and self-exploration. Without the distractions of societal norms or the expectations of others, we can dive deep into our own unconscious mind, uncovering aspects of ourselves that we may have repressed or ignored. For instance, when we are constantly surrounded by people, their opinions and expectations can influence our thoughts and decisions, often without us realizing it. It can be difficult to distinguish our own desires and needs from those of the people around us. In moments of silence, however, we have the opportunity to reflect on our own values, beliefs, and goals. This allows us to separate ourselves from external influences and begin to understand who we really are. It's in these quiet moments that we can uncover our true selves, separate from the expectations and pressures placed upon us by society. Jung also highlighted the importance of trust in silence, trusting our intuition and our inner voice. When we are constantly surrounded by noise, it can be hard to hear our intuition. We may doubt our instincts or second-guess our decisions because we are so influenced by the opinions and expectations of others. But in silence, we can reconnect with our intuition and trust the wisdom that lies within us. Jung believed that intuition was a vital aspect of self-awareness, and that by paying attention to our gut feelings, we can navigate life more effectively. To illustrate this, consider the process of making a major life decision, such as choosing a career or relationship. In a noisy, fast-paced world, it's easy to get caught up in the opinions of others. Friends, family, and colleagues may offer their advice, but it can be overwhelming, and we may struggle to hear our own inner voice. When we take the time to step back and embrace silence, however, we can better hear our intuition and gain the clarity needed to make decisions that are aligned with our true selves. The silence allows us to sift through the noise and focus on what truly matters to us. Jung also emphasized the power of silence in developing mindfulness and awareness. By observing without judgment, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. This observation isn't passive, it's an active engagement with our environment. It requires us to pay attention to the subtle details, the patterns, and the dynamics that often go unnoticed. Jung suggested that by honing our ability to observe without reacting, we can gain valuable insights into our own behavior and the behavior of others. For example, in a conversation, many people may be focused on what they're going to say next or how they are being perceived. But those who are comfortable with silence are able to listen deeply, observe the body language and tone of voice, and truly understand what the other person is trying to communicate. This kind of deep listening and observation leads to greater empathy and understanding, both of ourselves and of others. It also allows us to avoid misunderstandings and make more thoughtful, informed decisions in our relationships. In addition to the personal benefits of silence, Jung believed that silence could also enhance our ability to connect with others. When we are able to listen and observe deeply, we can respond in a way that is thoughtful, compassionate, and effective. We are no longer reacting impulsively or following the patterns of groupthink. Instead, we are able to engage in meaningful, authentic conversations that foster real connection. This is particularly important in a world where communication is often shallow and transactional. Jung's teachings on silence also offer practical techniques for incorporating this powerful tool into our daily lives. First and foremost, he encouraged individuals to trust their intuition. In a world that is filled with noise and distractions, it's easy to ignore our inner voice. But by taking time for quiet reflection, we can reconnect with our intuition and make decisions that are aligned with our true selves. Second, Jung recommended that people spend time in solitude, away from the noise of the world. Whether through meditation, journaling, or simply sitting quietly, solitude allows us to process our emotions, reflect on our experiences, and gain clarity. By regularly carving out time for solitude, we can create the mental space needed to explore our inner world and cultivate a deeper sense of self-awareness. Third, Jung advocated for the power of questioning. Silence doesn't mean passivity, it means being active in our thinking. By asking ourselves meaningful questions, we can deepen our understanding of ourselves and our surroundings. What do I truly want? Why do I feel this way? What is the deeper meaning behind this experience? These questions can guide us toward greater self-awareness and personal growth. Finally, Jung encouraged individuals to observe without judgment. In our fast-paced world, it's easy to make snap judgments or jump to conclusions. But by taking the time to observe without immediately reacting, we can gain insights that would otherwise remain hidden. This practice allows us to understand the world on a deeper level and to see beyond the surface to uncover truths that others might miss. In conclusion, silence is not just an absence of sound, it is a powerful tool for self-discovery, creativity, and growth. By embracing silence, we give ourselves the space to think, reflect, and reconnect with our true selves. Jung's teachings on silence encourage us to trust our intuition, spend time in solitude, ask meaningful questions, and observe the world with an open mind. By doing so, we can unlock our full potential and live more authentically. Silence, when used consciously and intentionally, can become a transformative force in our lives, guiding us toward greater self-awareness and personal fulfillment. Throughout life, many of us are told to fit in, to conform to societal norms, and to follow the crowd. From an early age, we are taught how to behave, what to value, and what our life trajectory should look like. In many ways, we are given a script to follow, a set of unwritten rules that tell us how to live, think, and interact with others. However, what happens when we find ourselves questioning those scripts? What if, despite our best efforts, we don't feel like we fit in, or that we don't belong to the social groups we are supposed to be part of? This feeling of alienation, of not fitting in, is often interpreted by others as antisocial behavior. But what if the problem isn't with us, but with the expectations placed upon us? The final message of the video touches on this exact point. It challenges the idea that if you feel like you don't belong, there's something wrong with you. It reassures the viewer that if you feel disconnected from certain groups or social norms, it is not a reflection of your inability to fit in, but rather a sign that you are thinking differently, more deeply, and more critically. In fact, the video proposes a bold idea. Perhaps, instead of being antisocial, you are simply more aware and more thoughtful than the majority. Rather than seeing yourself as someone who doesn't fit the mold, you're someone who recognizes that the mold itself may not be the ideal shape for everyone. You are someone who doesn't simply follow the crowd, but seeks to understand the deeper truths that are often overlooked by those around you. This thought-provoking statement ties back to Carl Jung's ideas about self-realization and individuality. Jung's philosophy emphasized the importance of living authentically and embracing the uniqueness of our true selves. He believed that to live fully, one must transcend the limitations imposed by society and understand and embrace who we truly are. This process, known as individuation, is not about conforming to societal expectations, but about breaking free from them to discover and live in alignment with our authentic self. According to Jung, true happiness and fulfillment come not from meeting the expectations of others, but from understanding ourselves on a deep, personal level and living according to that understanding. Jung's idea of individuation challenges the conventional path that society often promotes. Society tends to reward conformity, those who follow the prescribed path of education, career, relationships, and lifestyle choices are often praised and validated. However, this societal path does not always lead to happiness or fulfillment. In many cases, it leads to a life that is dictated by external influences, where individuals live for the approval and acceptance of others rather than for their own desires and values. This is where Jung's teachings become transformative. By encouraging us to break free from the collective norms and instead focus on the individual journey of self-discovery, Jung offers a way to reclaim our true selves, free from the expectations that often restrict us. To embrace our individuality, we first need to accept the discomfort that may come with it. Being true to yourself often means making choices that go against the grain. For example, someone may choose to leave a stable, well-paying job in a traditional industry to pursue a passion in the arts or start their own business. To some, this might seem irresponsible or foolish. But for the individual following their own path, it's a step toward living authentically, aligning their career with their values and passions. The discomfort that comes from deviating from the prescribed path is often what holds people back. But if we can push past that discomfort and embrace our differences, we open ourselves up to a deeper, more meaningful life. Jung's emphasis on self-awareness and authenticity is not just about living differently from others. It's about living according to what is true for us. Each person has their own unique path in life, and it's only by following that path, without undue influence from others, that we can find fulfillment. The key to this journey is introspection and reflection, taking the time to understand what truly matters to us and what we want our lives to stand for. It's not about what others expect of us, but about what we expect of ourselves. This message is particularly relevant in the context of today's world, where social media and public perceptions often drive us to seek validation and approval from others. In many ways, social media amplifies the pressure to conform, to show only the curated aspects of our lives that will garner likes, comments, and followers. But this pursuit of external validation often leads to an empty, superficial existence, one where we lose touch with what truly makes us happy and fulfilled. In contrast, Jung's philosophy encourages us to look inward, to reflect on our values and desires, and to live authentically, even if that means stepping away from the crowd. The video also underscores the importance of recognizing that not everyone will understand or appreciate this path. When you choose to live authentically and reject societal expectations, you may face criticism, misunderstanding, and rejection. People may label you as antisocial or difficult simply because you choose to live differently. But Jung would argue that this is not something to fear. On the contrary, it is a sign that you are on the right path. The people who are most likely to reject you are those who are still trapped in the conventional script, unable or unwilling to break free from the collective norms. Their rejection is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their inability to understand your journey. This point is crucial in the process of individuation. The more we embrace our true selves, the more we become aware of our unique path. The more we must be willing to face the discomfort that comes with being misunderstood. In many ways, this is the cost of authenticity, the willingness to be different, to stand apart from the crowd, and to risk being judged or alienated. But the rewards of living authentically far outweigh the temporary discomfort of facing criticism or rejection. When we live according to our true nature, we create a life that is deeply fulfilling, meaningful, and aligned with our values. The key lesson here is that embracing our individuality is not about rejecting others or being isolated. It's about rejecting the limitations that society places on us. It's about living authentically in alignment with who we truly are and not letting the opinions or judgments of others dictate how we live our lives. True freedom comes when we stop seeking validation from external sources and instead find our worth in our own self-awareness and self-acceptance. It's about finding the courage to live according to our own script, one that reflects our deepest desires, values, and dreams. Jung's teachings offer a transformative approach to life. They encourage us to break free from the constraints of societal expectations and instead embrace our own unique path. By doing so, we can live more authentically, find deeper fulfillment, and experience a richer, more meaningful life in a world that often pressures us to fit in and conform. Jung's message is a powerful reminder that true happiness and self-realization come not from following the crowd, but from understanding and living according to our own truth. The journey of individuation may not always be easy, but is the path that leads to true self-discovery, inner peace, and lasting fulfillment. Have you ever felt like you just don't fit in? Like no matter how hard you try, you're always on the outside looking in? Maybe you've been called antisocial or weird just because you prefer to keep to yourself or avoid shallow conversations. It's a feeling that many of us have experienced at some point in our lives. But what if I told you that this feeling of not belonging might actually be a sign that you're smarter, more aware, and more in tune with the world around you than most people? In today's video, we're diving into the profound teachings of Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists in history, who argued that being antisocial isn't a flaw, it's a path to self-awareness, creativity, and personal growth. Jung believed that in order to truly live a fulfilling life, we must separate ourselves from the noise of society and focus on discovering our true selves. This journey, known as individuation, isn't about conforming to societal expectations or following the crowd. It's about breaking free from the script that everyone else follows and learning to live according to your own authentic desires and values. So, if you've ever felt misunderstood, disconnected, or like you just don't quite fit in, then this video is for you. We'll explore the power of silence, observation, and solitude, and how these practices can lead you to greater self-awareness and fulfillment. You're not antisocial or broken, you're just more awake, more conscious, and more capable of seeing the world in ways that others can't. Before we dive into this fascinating exploration of self-awareness, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and hit that subscribe button to join our growing community. If you find the content valuable and want to support the channel, please consider donating a super thanks. Your support helps me keep creating insightful and transformative content for all of you. Let's get started on this journey of self-discovery and awakening.